Adventure in Pullman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm very excited about our next guest because what an amazing musician, and that's not an easy thing to say in these days because there's great musicians and then there's music. Well, he falls under both. So let's welcome to the show, Jeff Kollman. How are you?
Hey, how you doing there? Good to see you, Dean.
Good to see you, and I'm very excited about your new album that's right behind me there, 2023 AD, and now we're already in 2024. You might have to do a follow-up album too.
Yeah, right. I'm always a year behind schedule.
Right. It's one and the same, if you ask me. And so tell us a little bit about how this album came about, and a little bit from your point of view, the artist on this album, because you do have a lot of guest players on it, which I think is super cool, especially that they would want to do it with you. That says a lot.
Yeah, so the players I have on there, we had a single we released with Chad Smith, and the story behind that song and bringing him in is I have another band called the Bombastic Meatbats that we kind of formed out of an era when I was producing Glenn Hughes. Chad would come in and Ed Roth, keyboard player, and we would jam and wait around for Glenn to show up, in the studio. And we found ourselves doing this kind of 70s Jeff Beck, Billy Preston kind of stuff. And so fast forward, we made a couple of records and a live recording and did some random touring in between the Chili Peppers and Chickenfoot and whatnot. And then in the process of making a newer record, I came up with the song Tongs and Thongs. And Chad got busy because Frusciante came back in the fold. The Peppers just started rolling. So as I'm making this new record, I thought, man, I could use that song in the record. It really has the vibe and the sound that I want in the track lineup. And he came over on a Thursday and knocked it out. And he knocked it out in the first take, but I asked him to do a second take and kind of fill all the holes. He said, like Ron Jeremy meets Ian Pace. I'm like, yeah, something like that. So he's on there. The whole thing was recorded last year, and the 2023 AD, that's the intro piece is a tribute to the great Jeff Beck. And he passed away in 2023, as some of you know. Just a legend beyond legend. Yeah. So, I have Shane Gaalaas on there, and the wonderful drummers play with Michael Schenker, Yngwie Malmsteen, every guitar player under the planet. Jimmy Johnson from Allan Holdsworth's group. So, the thing is I recruited different players for different, who I thought would be good. Okay, this guy's perfect for this song, that sort of thing.
Right.
And, stylistically, the previous album, which was called East of Heaven, that was done during a lockdown. So there was a little bit more writing in your room and sending tracks off and, a little disjointed in that way. I'm really proud of it, the way it worked out, but it's a little more reflective. And, this one's a little more in your face. And now we're back. And
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you find too, okay, I've been saying if you're going to take one positive out of the lockdown is that, I don't know, it gave musicians an ability to jump off the hamster wheel and get creative again, which because we were living this fast-paced life, do this. It's like some of the creativity got lost, and I think now it's coming back because artists not only had that time, but realized, hey, I want to go back to this on the regular.
Yeah. It's interesting because during the lockdown, I guess you learn a lot about yourself when you spend so much time with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a different way of writing, and yeah, you had time to be creative and not just out on the road nonstop. And because I guess a lot of musicians are so busy doing it, they don't really think about like
Right.
the hamster on the hamster wheel. But then on the other hand, the fans got so starved for live music. I think live music is, you know, come back in a big way since the pandemic. People want to get out, they want to spend their money, and they want to have a good time. And I think they don't take it for granted as much because it was difficult for people during the lockdown.
Oh, no doubt. I think, see, live music to me is some of the best therapy, music in general, but live music in particular. Like you just escape from reality, and you're with all these people that are your big family at a festival that most of them you don't even know, but they're still your family. And you're just all there for the same reason. And I think what was happening leading up to COVID is, like you were saying, people were taking it for granted. They were complaining all the time. And now there's right. And they're still complaining. I know. I see it all the time. Like, I do coverage all these music festivals. I'm like, dude, at least we have live music. Me, I was saying during the lockdown, I'm like, I don't care if some kid in 5th grade gets up on stage with a recorder. I'm going to that live show because I don't care. I just want live music.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then especially with a musician like yourself, to me, seeing somebody like you play live opposed to on a studio is a whole different experience.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing, you know. You just express different. You're just completely free, and you know that's part of the trick in the studio is to not get the red light syndrome where you're overthinking and, you know, really trying to capture what you do live. So but it's a different animal completely.
Yeah, 100%.
The way you interact with the fellow players, and so
you know what was a trip about. Sorry, say that again.
I said I love them both. I love, you know, the studio creativity process and the live. You know what I love about the studio that I think an art that we're starting to lose is a whole album, like a movie, in an order. Like if you changed The Wall or Dark Side of the Moon or one of these great albums, the flow of the songs.
Yeah.
You know, I start putting together songs and I think about a vision. You're thinking about artwork. You're thinking about the titles. And then I'm thinking about the flow and which songs work, which songs don't, and the order of things. And I'll work on that as much as working on any individual tune. And for people just to click, listen to a few seconds of something, go on to something else. It's such
I know, right?
Imagine doing that with Dark Side of the Moon on shuffle mode in iTunes.
Oh,
you know.
It's so funny, too, that you mentioned Dark Side, because I was at Punk Rock Bowling this weekend, and that came up in an interview. And I was like, yeah, it's just like Dark Side's just one big song. How can you just listen to one of the songs? And then it's so weird. If you listen to one on the radio, it almost, when it ends, it sounds like, where's the rest of the song?
Yeah. So, and with instrumental music, it's tricky because you have to express in a different way. And I like to think that people don't need lyrics to feel emotion, right? I mean,
yeah,
come on. There's a whole thing called classical music that went on forever. And, but you can fall into a trap of just writing to show off.
Yeah.
Guitar players are known for that, you know, I'll play a little head and then I'll just shred over these changes. And then, okay, here's my country song. Here's this thing to show that I can sound like this. And I think it can get a little silly, you know? So I like a challenge, making a cohesive album.
And that's what made musicians like Jeff Beck great, because it's like they didn't put in this formula. You know, you guys don't put in a formula. You don't put in a formula. It's just creative musicianship. Whereas I think the other things you were talking about, that's part of that formula thing, which is a big thing nowadays in music too, because of that click, click, click trend mentality. Yeah. It's like musicians are being told to plug in this formula because this is the formula that the algorithm likes. And, you know, I think music should go way beyond an algorithm.
Yeah, I mean that at that point you're halfway to AI.
Right? Exactly. Which is starting to happen now. It's like, I don't know. AI is good for some things, I guess, but to make a whole song out of AI,
I don't understand
like,
it.
what's the purpose? I think what we're losing is experts in any field nowadays. It's like, if anybody can do this stuff, then nobody's really an expert. And then it's just all but a bunch of watered down stuff, no
Yeah,
matter what industry.
you're never going to replace human emotion.
No.
You know, so I'm not worried about any of that. Yeah, you know, it's you have to find inspiration in everything and somehow figure out a way to fuel it into your music and
Yeah.
write from an honest perspective.
Exactly.
You know?
And I'm sure
I don't have
through
much to say from a lyrical standpoint, so I feel really comfortable with instrumental music, and I love collaborating with singers and songwriters and that sort of thing, and delivering a song and supplying the music. And I can write lyrics, you know, as good as some, but it's not like, you know, John Lennon or Roger Waters. So, you know, I'm happy to do instrumental music and I love it. And trying to create a mood and a depth of emotion through the sonic experience, you know.
Yeah. Well, to me, some of the greatest guitarists, like yourself, you know, you are expressing lyrics, just not with words and not with singing, you know, like the music itself that you create on the instrument, to me, says a lot without saying a word.
Right. Well, thank you.
And
yeah, I'm excited about this record, the sonic quality of it. You know, even though my hearing is getting worse and worse, tinnitus is growing, I learned so much more about space and production and what works and, you know, guitar tone and working with drum tones and just, you know, compression and putting the whole thing together. And, you know, and I work with Alan Parsons, which he's such an inspiration with mixing records. And so, you know, it's just it's a joy. Just the mixing process of an album is such a joy to do.
See, I love hearing that stuff because I love that you like both sides of it. Because there's so many artists that it's like, well, I only want to do this or I only want to do that. And I think to be a true artist, you love the whole process, every bit of it from start to finish.
Yeah. Yeah, there's releases I listen to and I go, man, I wish I mixed that. Yeah, I love the Steve Vai's latest record, you know, and a lot of times I listened to it, I was like, it doesn't sound as hi-fi as he presents himself as a whole.
Wow.
You know? Like it's great. It's like, man, I wish I could have. It sounds so arrogant, right? I wish I could have mixed your record, but you know, but I'm sure it's the way exactly how he wanted it. But it's an interesting thing, you know.
It is true though, because when you do that, you do hear things that others may not hear. It's no different than, you know, when it comes to me and radio, and I'll listen to other people and I'll be like, well, I wouldn't really do it that way, or, oh, wow, that's a cool way to do it. And then I listen to my own and I'm, you know, as we all know, we're our own worst critic. And like, I'll have somebody say, that was a great interview. And then I'll get off and I'll listen. And I'm like, oh, man, I sucked.
These dog driving boring.
So how do people connect to you on socials, on the web? How do they get the new album, all that good stuff?
Album, it's out on DEKO Records. I have a label, Marmaduke, but we kind of did a thing together. And anybody can buy any of my merch at jeffkollman.com or kollmanation.com. And we're doing vinyl, and it'll be ready to ship the beginning of July. And this record's 49 minutes, so it's too long for one album, but then it's too short for two albums. If you start looking at 3 or 4 sides, I was like, oh, I have 3 sides of a double album. So I ended up in the 11th hour writing another couple of things, and the bonus tracks are just for the vinyl.
Very
so
cool.
Side 4 of the vinyl is all bonus. I brought in Ric Fierabracci, who's used to play with Chick Corea, and it's just a wonderful player. And Guy Allison is with the Doobie Brothers for 20 years, and Guy co-wrote a tune called 1979 with me, and it's pretty darn cool, man. So that was fun to get a side 4 going for the album, and that'll entice people to maybe buy the vinyl if they're fans and collecting, and they can only get that through the vinyl. It won't be released digitally.
And so that's the way it should be anyway, because like vinyl is a whole experience. We were talking about that a lot in interviews. It's making such a big comeback with even young artists that never experienced it. It's like having that tangible product, and that, you know, something you and I know. I remember sitting out on my balcony after I bought an album and listening to the album like 50 times in a row while I'm looking at every little bit of artwork on the cover and reading all the lyrics. And, you know, I have people today, no matter what song comes on the radio, like I know the lyrics, and they're like, how do you know the lyrics to that? Because we sat down and listened to it 10 million times and memorized the lyrics with the lyrics right in front of us, you know? And track thing, you know, how do they ever really get to know a song? Or I think about the parts of songs they miss. Like some of the songs are my favorite songs. If I only listened the first 10 seconds, I probably never would have known that was one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. You know, the experience of vinyl, right? You're listening from start to finish. Put it on in the house, cooking dinner, whatever, hanging out, and just listen. That's why I like to drive. If somebody gives me a new record and I, you know, taking a little road trip, it's a great way to listen to, well, a podcast or listen to an album in its entirety. And, you know, it's not that expensive to get into vinyl, really. You can, I bought a turntable for like $150, some Pioneer speakers, $100 clips, you know, subwoofer, and I'm off to the races.
Nice.
I mean, obviously you can spend fortunes, you know, just with the needle and all that sort of thing. But, you know, people, you know, anybody over 35 or 40, your eyes start going, you look at a CD, it's like, who played on this thing? What the hell am I looking at? You know.
I never even thought of that part, but it's so true. I'd probably be pulling out the flashlight on my phone to look at it.
The worst thing is people at concerts and they're just sitting there, they're looking at the band on their phone.
We could go into a whole rabbit hole with that, because I'm like, man, I understand you want to get some memories, so clip it 30 seconds or whatever. But I sit there and watch people watch the whole concert on their phone, and I'm like, just go home and watch YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole podcast about how the phone is the worst invention, and you know, Sebastian Bach mentioned it years ago. He's like, man, fans used to come up and you could have some cool conversations and meet and get to know some of these people. And now it's just, they come up and they want to do a selfie with you. They get in your face and then they're out. He goes, it's just weird. The whole experience is, you know, it can be rude. It can be weird. It's, you know, you're not attached, and it's just a strange phenomenon.
Well, I say all the time, we have more ways to communicate ever in history, and our communication is the absolute worst. Yeah. And you know what? I don't care that I don't have any selfies from teenage years, because, man, I have these memories in my head that are way beyond whatever those selfies could be, and the experiences that I had, and like things like hanging out with Lemmy at the Rainbow, you know, and there's not one picture of it, not one. And who gives a crap, you know? I have up here the experience, you know, like you're saying. Whereas nowadays, it would be just over here. Take a picture with me. Have a nice day. That's all I care about. I just want a picture.
Yeah, I had a nice chat with Lemmy at the Rainbow while he was playing Pac-Man. And, you know, we talked about UFO and Thin Lizzy and cool things, you know. And, if I had a phone and had that kind of mindset, I would have taken a photo and then run off. Exactly. Share with friends, and who cares?
Yeah, tell everybody, show everybody. And then at the end of the day, it was just a picture. Yeah. You know? So, well, I love it. I love your music, especially this new album. Everybody has to go check it out and get it, and get the vinyl so you get the extra music.
That's right. Vinyl. Come on.
And it's just cool anyway. It's cool to have vinyl now, so you might as well. And thanks a lot for giving us great musicianship and music, and thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipe Man.
All right. Thank you so much, Dean.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.